Today on Rates and Barrels, it is Fantasy Friday. Injuries are wreaking more havoc on depth charts around the league, and we had a demotion of a top prospect. Colt Emerson has been sent back to AAA by the Mariners.
Waiver wire, it has pitching. Looks like it. There's some guys returning from injury. Edwin Cabrera, Carlos Rodón. Got some young guys to look at. Jackson Kent. There's a lot of pitching to talk about.
Plus, we'll talk about the fantasy baseball trade deadline. It's still out in the future for a few leagues. What can you do to bolster your team both down the stretch and potentially in 2027? Welcome to Rates and Barrels. It's Friday, August 14th, Fantasy Friday to be exact. Derek Van Riper here with Eno Sarris. We've got some waiver targets to consider. Niv Shah joins us later on in the show. We're talking about some players you might be thinking about trading for or trading away with league trade deadlines either happening this weekend or at some point between now and the end of August in a lot of leagues. Eno, happy Friday. How you doing today?
Doing good. My cat woke me up in the middle of the night. One of the cats does not like to come in. Magnus, the one you've seen, does not like to come in at the right time. And so he woke me up and I didn't go back to sleep for a while. So I'm a little grumpy.
Oh, okay. That's good to know. I am happy and fatigued because of the Brewers' comeback at Dodger Stadium against Edwin Díaz. That was a late start for me in the Midwest. I decided to stick it out to the end and was rewarded, which felt good after the sweep earlier in the week in San Diego. We'll talk about Edwin Díaz here in just a few minutes. We got some show business to address up top, as we do most days. We've got our meetup lined up for Chicago 2 weeks from today. That's Friday, August 28th at Was Brewing. Pizza pop-up, $1 off split squad taps. If you mention you're there with the Rates and Barrels meetup, 7 o'clock start. Will be in the back room area. We'll have games on there as well. And if you're in town earlier in the day, I keep bringing this up because I may or may not be there, but I think you want to be there if you can go either way. Cubs Cardinals, a matinee, 1:20 local start on that Friday. You can't beat a Friday afternoon game at Wrigley.
No, that would be a good day.
You can also find us on Instagram now. We'll put the link for that in the bio. It's also linked in the Discord. I think it's Rates_Barrels is the correct one. I did a search for Rates and Barrels on Instagram before we launched our account, and there is a video of me talking about using the car wash as a way to take a timeout as a parent, where you can just burn some clock and zone out for 10 to 30 minutes, depending on how long the line is. So I'm glad some of my best takes have actually made it out beyond the walls of the show.
Good job.
Hey, that's all I can contribute, right? Life hacks. Some baseball news you should know as we get started. It was a rare night off for Taj Bradley in Iowa. Blame the corn sweat. 4 innings, 5 earned, 7 hits, a couple of homers, including a leadoff one to Kyle Schwarber. 89 pitches. Taj has had a great season overall. You know, his last 10 starts, he racked up 60 innings, pitched to a 3.30 ERA, a 1.13 whip, over a strikeout per inning, 68 Ks against 25 walks, only 6 homers during that span. So I think this will be a bump in the road for what appears to be that consolidation breakout sort of season we'd been hoping for Taj Bradley for a long time.
Yeah, he still has that iffy command that will dock him a little bit versus his stuff in next year's rankings for me. A 92 location plus on the year is very borderline for a starting pitcher. So people might be surprised that I don't go all the way in on Taj Bradley next year.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be price dependent, I think, in drafts. I don't know if there'll be some overcorrection because of the prospect pedigree and the potential there. But I do think being in the AL Central gives him a higher floor for me than if he had to pitch in the AL East or deal with a more difficult series of matchups in division. So I may end up with some Bradley in 2027, but I don't think I'll have 7 teams out of 15 with Taj Bradley on them, despite some of the success we've seen this year. The Field of Dreams game, I think, delivered again. It wasn't great in terms of the actual game itself. It was a 7-1 blowout for the Phillies, but seeing the entrance, the players coming out of the corn and the Hall of Famers coming out of the corn and having that long introduction, the score from the movie underneath it, like just a really, really good reminder that baseball is so damn cool when it puts something like this together. There are moments where it can actually send you back to childhood or when you saw the movie, or just to kind of make you feel like baseball is a bigger thing than it even really is. Like I think this was one of those nights overall, and a lot of questions and commentary around the game. But one thing that came up in our Discord that I wanted to ask you about, Eno, they didn't have the strike zone box on the feed. And there were a few people in the Discord, I think Luke Gleisch among them, just bringing up that he actually likes that not being there, even though we have had the accurate box. In the games I've watched this year, I don't think I've seen a strike zone box on TV like mislead me. I think it's been right for every single call as far as like challenges. Like if it's in the box and they challenge, it is a strike. If it's outside, it's been a ball. I think they've calibrated that really effectively. But they had no ABS challenge system available in Dyersville. Should we all have to decide if it's a ball or strike on our own watching the game? Should we not have benefit as viewers, as fans, of knowing and then kind of laughing at the umpires when they miss calls by an inch or less in many instances? Like, is it actually a better way to watch the game to not have the box there?
I don't know. I personally prefer to have it there. I mean, it's just on a day-to-day basis. If I'm watching, I just want to know. I want to know if they should have challenged or not. You know, I want to be in on that strategery and sort of think it through. And I'm also like, you know, there's been some more recent research on the average miss distance of a pitcher, and I wish I could tell you exactly where the feed was, but there's a young man has come out with some research that he used optical recognition technology and like sort of computer vision to find the range is closer to 8 to 11 inches instead of a median around 13 inches on average miss. And I'm happy with that because I'm often impressed by how good their command is, you know? And so I really love seeing a ball like hit top rail or hit that corner, you know what I mean? Especially when they meant to do it. I don't know. I love seeing that visual. So it's a visceral thing for me. It's a strategic thing for me. It's a analytics thing for me. I like having the box there. But for this game, I like that it wasn't there because something clicked for me in watching this about Netflix and their coverage of baseball. And I was trying to explain to my wife, like, why Netflix had this game and what else it has. And I was like, it has opening day and it has the home run derby and it has the Field of Dreams. Like, it has these weird games. And you know, her cynical answer was, well, that's just so that every, you know, like big baseball fan has to have Netflix. And I was like, yeah, no, I get that aspect of it. But there's another part of it, too, that I've actually criticized on the show before, which is their method of production for, you know, their opening day had these dancers on taxi cabs and in trolley carts on the field, and Bert Kreischer's always there for Netflix for some reason, and like, you know, like there's a really sort of bizarre aspect to their production. However, in this game, it sort of clicked for me that like I think their mode is the cinematic nature of baseball. That's what they want to. Like, if Netflix can have a successful way into this that's different than CBS and it's different than whatever, Peacock, all those guys, if they want to be different, they should make it as cinematic looking as possible. Their score bug should be, I don't know, cinematic or small or, you know, just like maybe not even have a score, but like just some sort of way of just always coming back to the cinematic nature of baseball, because that was what was cool about not having the box. And that was what was cool about this game, was them coming out of the cornfield, the way that the wood even looked, the wood grain, you know, like the way their shots of the corn, you know, in between innings and stuff, and like their use of certain music. So if I had anything, I'd say that this was maybe my favorite Netflix production of the different ones, and that is because it was the most cinematic, and it kind of dovetailed with what they could do well.
Yeah, that does seem like their wheelhouse, and I think if they can go slightly less aggressive on the synergy and the promotion of their comedians and the other movies and shows they have. I think that's generally good for baseball fans. We didn't see Bert Kreischer on the back of a John Deere tractor eating buttered corn shirtless. Like, we didn't need that. I'm glad we didn't have that. Like, that was a good production choice to
would have been
not
the wrong
do that.
vibe for this moment too.
It would have killed the vibes completely. But in the back of my head, like, I was fearing that the entire time. Like, when's it coming? When are we going to see
Cena
Bert?
runs out of the corn?
Yeah, Cena just like beats up a scarecrow in the cornfield. Like, you never know. Like, all of those things are possible. So I'm with you. I think they did a great job overall with the presentation of this game. And it sounds like it's coming back for 2027 as well. So it is moving up the rankings for me of things I'd like to see, like bucket list baseball items. I'd like to see a game played in Dyersville because it looks like a really fun experience. And they've, I think, done quite a bit to build up that stadium to make it a little more viable for return trips for major league games throughout regular seasons. Not an every 5 years thing, but maybe an every year and every other year sort of thing. Got some other baseball news you should know here as we get rolling. Bryce Terang was sent for an MRI on his knee, results of which have not been clarified. He is going to have a second opinion on his knee. Pat Murphy didn't rule him out beyond Thursday. He did not play in that Brewers win over the Dodgers, but they are getting hammered by a combination of infield injuries right now at the major league and AAA level that put Andrew Vaughn back at third base, Gary Sanchez at first, and Jake Bauers was actually out in right. That was against Roki Sasaki on Thursday night. So if Jet Williams was healthy, he would be on the big league roster right now. Jet Williams is not healthy. And if they were planning on bringing up Jesus Mate to play third base, he'd be playing third base in the minors. He's not. He's only played shortstop defensively this year. So I am waiting for either another waiver claim or something to go right on the health front, because I think they're stretched extremely thin in terms of upper level depth at third base right now. A lot of prospects they simply don't want to bring up other than Mate that could actually be part of that solution.
Yeah. How good of a third baseman is Andrew Vaughn?
He's not great. I mean, like, and I'm not saying that to be rude. Like, there was a ball hit to him that he tried to make a play to Gary Sanchez, and you could just tell these are two corner guys that are not playing the right positions. Like, it was just that clear.
What are the injuries that they're dealing with?
So it's Jet in the minors is down, and at the big league level, they have been dealing with. Let me pull up the full list here for a second. It's unreal. Why is this broken? Hold on. Joey Ortiz just came back and actually played shortstop. So they played David Hamilton in second.
It's a hamstring?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a hamstring for him. So that's kind of part of what started this. Pratt's down. Ortiz was down. Jet Williams is down. It's weird. It's just all at once. And a situation that they probably just didn't think was mathematically possible for them to be in.
The Vaughn thing would be super short term because you can play Hamilton and Ortiz on the left side most nights.
Right. The key is that if this Terang injury becomes a bigger problem, one of those guys has to move over to that mix. They recently got Ji-Hwan Bae as just a depth addition, which is a bummer because the guy that opened up Bae like for the Brewers was Gabriel Arias going to the Mets. And I think Arias would be a great fit on this Brewers roster right now.
They need somebody like him. So
but the Mets had the claim priority with the worst record.
This is just, I think, one of those stretches that teams go through that, bring them back to earth and keep them from winning 130 games. And you know what I mean? It's just like, that's the bad stretch. And they have to just win as many games as they can by grinding it out. They'll do that. They'll come back to earth. I think it'll make it a tighter divisional race with the Cubs. I think they'll lose some games going forward because this is not their best starting lineup. And so they just have to get healthy. I don't know what to tell you in terms of like pickups and who I'm interested in. I think Hamilton for a short term or Ortiz for a short term, but I'd say that both are just really for depth leagues. I wouldn't really want them for much more than like trying to steal a few steals and maybe they're going to face somebody that doesn't defend the run very well. Maybe you could grab a few steals from those two guys.
Yeah, maybe some schedule-dependent streaming opportunities there, but I'm with you. It's for deeper leagues only. Pratt is expected to come off the IL at some point in late August, so probably another week plus away from his possible return. Some other injury and rehab notes.
By the way, let's just check in real quick on Pratt, because, again, I still have people knocking down my door for Pratt and our 20-teamer. And how do you feel about his future? I mean, he's done a lot of the things that we hoped he would do, which is show good plate discipline, plate approach, contact, strikeout rate, walk rate, with not much power and good speed. Has the defense passed the eye test? Does he look like, he's going to stick it short for a long time? And he is a bigger dude, so we think that he's just going to grow into more power.
Yeah, I think that last part is sort of the offensive profile projection that everybody is hoping for Cooper Pratt. I think defensively he looks good at short. Like, I have no concerns about him with the glove, and they've had basically a defensive specialist playing there for the better part of the last 2 years, with Joey Ortiz being their primary option until they promoted Cooper Pratt. So I think it's just how patient can you be in a keeper dynasty league waiting for that power to come. And it might not be all at once. It might take a couple of seasons for him to get up to that peak. He's still really young. He moved through the minor leagues relatively quickly. And I think expectations right now are going to be more around steals. And it's a little bit like Bryce Terang's profile when Terang broke through, probably with a little more floor power than Terang showed in games from the jump. Because Bryce Terang, if you remember when he was first called up, I mean, it seemed like he was getting the bat knocked out of his hands from a power perspective. But there was just nothing in the numbers, at least in those first two seasons, that made you think, yeah, this guy's going to get to 20 plus home run power. I mean, he had ISOs of 0.82 and 0.895 or 0.95 the first 2 years. Like, that's never what you're looking for in terms of future average or better power hitters.
And for what it's worth, Pratt is starting with about 2 ticks more bat speed than Terang did.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, physically much bigger.
Yeah, and I don't want to make the mistake that I've made where I've sort of looked at a prospect's bat speed when they've entered the big leagues and been like, that's your bat speed. Because I was just looking at Pete Crow Armstrong, plus 4 ticks of bat speed since he broke in. I was looking at Jackson Chourio. We had this conversation with Jackson Chourio. He's up, not as much. It's sort of a 1.5, 2 ticks. But if you gave Cooper Pratt 2 ticks, he'd have 72 mile an hour bat speed. That would be more than Terang has right now. And that matters, because if he can be a guy who hits 18 to 20 homers and steals 30 bags, then you've got a really valuable fantasy situation there. So I think he's still someone. It's a little bit hard to hold on to somebody like this in like a 10 or 12 team league, especially if you have like OPS or something, if he's not hitting for power. But I think this is the type of player you want to hold on to.
Let's compare him briefly to a couple other young shortstops, two that were optioned to AAA recently. One who hasn't spent much time in the big leagues this year, and the other, Colt Emerson, who had a pretty nice run. Like, Carson Williams got sent back down by the Rays. Some people didn't even realize he was up. Played 16 games now at the big league level this year. It's only 40 plate appearances, but a 32.5% K rate, a -3 WRC plus. I thought because of defense alone, Williams had a better path to regular duty for the Rays this year, and I'm surprised that the season's gone this poorly for him, even though we had concerns about the approach. With Emerson, and looking at the first 69 games of his big league career, 241 plate appearances, similar swing and miss problems, 34.4% K rate. He has popped 8 homers, stolen 3 bases. Defense looks fine at short. We're not like worried about that. But let's start with Emerson. Like, what has gone wrong? He moved quickly through their system, signed the extension, and it just seems like swing decisions are the root of the problem, at least up to this point in his young career.
Yeah. One thing that stands out is that, both these guys, Williams and Emerson, have more just straight up swing and miss than Cooper Pratt. Cooper Pratt's running like a 10% whiff rate. Both those other guys, Emerson and Williams, are running 16, 17 to 18s, I think with Williams, that's not going to change much. I think he's always going to be a low batting average guy. I think the best you can hope for Carson Williams is something like Colson Montgomery. I think you can hope for him to hit for power, maybe for speed, but never for great batting average, and have some really streaky moments where everything's locked in and then he's useless for a while at the plate. I just think that's the profile that I see from Carson Williams. Colt Emerson's interesting because he's had these whiff numbers in the big leagues, but he didn't have them as much in the minor leagues. One thing that did port over from the minor leagues to the big leagues is he was 20th percentile in chase, according to Prospect Savant. Colt Emerson was. So that came over and came into the big leagues, and he has a bottom 20th percentile. Like he's a basically 17th percentile in terms of Z-O, in terms of plate approach, in terms of swinging at strikes and not swinging at balls. That's Colt Emerson with a bottom approach. So I don't know. I think I would tell him, like I've told other people that have this problem, I think I would tell him, you need to be aggressive in the zone. And you need to be aggressive in the zone, make contact with something in the zone before you make contact with something out of the zone, as Jed Lowry would say. And whittle away at that swing strike rate. So you come back up and you're swinging at 72, 74% of strikes. And you're missing only, 12, 13% of the time, like you did in AAA. And you get your strikeout rate down to 26, 27%. And you let that power shine a little bit. I mean, 72.5 mile an hour bat speed is better than Cooper Pratt's. So like he theoretically has more present power right now. And so that's what I would do with Colt Emerson. And in terms of ranking them or thinking about them, I think I might move Pratt ahead just because the floor is higher. The floor for Pratt is the highest out of any of these guys. The ceiling for Emerson might still be the highest because he has that bat speed. He has that foot speed. He might be able to put something that's a little bit heavier on the power side than Cooper Pratt. And I'm always going to favor guys that have more power upside. So ceiling still goes to Colt Emerson. Floor goes to Pratt. Overall, if I had both of them on my roster and had to choose, I might choose Pratt because I've been thinking that I like floor over ceiling sometimes. I just like, having a sure thing. Then again, I play in a lot of deeper leagues. So the shallower your league is, the more you should be focusing on ceiling.
Yeah, I'm looking at a couple leaderboards for rookies right now. Minimum 150 plate appearances, so that leaves you 41 rookie hitters that would qualify. Colt Emerson dead last in WOBA so far with a 256. I mean, he's very young. There's still lots of time for him to eventually turn things around, but I think that gives you the pretty clear, this is why he got sent down. And I guess the other part of this too is we always talk about the benefits for pitchers of being in Seattle. The difficulty for a young hitter breaking in that environment is probably something that gets a little bit understated sometimes.
That's probably augmented the swing strike rate for Colt Emerson and the strikeout rate. I mean, good points. Those are a difficult thing for a young player to deal with.
Yeah, and I think when we talked to Ryan Divish a few weeks ago, the Mariners writer for the Seattle Times, he explained that he thought Emerson showed a lot more maturity than the typical player that age. So you get the sense that a reset maybe won't shatter his confidence. They could get him back up possibly before the end of this season with an eye towards getting him back in as their regular shortstop in 2027.
And the team context for this is just that they are floundering. They've lost how many in a row now? Or did they? They just won one against the Yankees, but they had lost 7 in a row before that, and they're really struggling on the offensive side. And this is just one of those positions where it's the easiest to twiddle the dials and come up with some more offense, I guess.
Yeah, 3-7 in the last 10. It's been a difficult stretch for the Mariners. 6-14 in their last 20. That is brutal. Like in this window when we thought now's the time they will take control of the AL West, they have made their jobs a lot more difficult for these final 6 weeks of the season.
And for the season, you look at them and you Randy Oreza, 141 WRC plus, Cole Young, 110, Naylor, 106. It's not a great year, but he's still better than the league average. Julio Rodriguez, 117, hasn't gotten white hot yet, but still a pretty good year. JP Crawford above league average. Ken Zoll, 133 WRC plus for the year. So Luke Raley above, and you're like, okay, this is going to work. This is a good offense. It's gotten to be a worse defense over time, but you're like, this is a good offense. Well, not the last 30. Just all of those guys, way worse in the last 30. So, Cal Raleigh has an outsized effect on where the Mariners go this year, I think. And it's unfortunate because I'm sure he's in his head. I've seen him take too many called strike threes recently.
Yeah, and the same was true in the inverse last year. Like, he had such an amazing, historically great season. When you looked at the team offensive production for the Mariners, he was skewing it in the opposite direction too. So I don't know if we'll ever see a high and a low season back to back the way we have from Cal Raleigh in 25 and 26. It's hard to imagine hitting your highest percentile outcome and your lowest percentile outcome in consecutive seasons. It's very unusual.
I'm going to have a lot of Cal Raleigh next year.
Yeah, I wonder what the price is going to be. I know the Rob DiPietro meatball draft is coming up next week, so that might be our first look at what's going on in 2027.
I guess I could not if there's not a lot of market correction, but I feel like the market might overcorrect because I think a sober projection for Cal Raleigh next year is still for like a 230 batting average and 35 homers.
And still going to play a lot. Yeah,
that's a really good catcher. It is, especially in 2 catcher leagues. That's worth money.
I think you might be right, just because there are a lot of quality players at the position right now. So a lot of people are going to say, I don't need to subject myself to the unknown of how much of a bounce back there's going to be, and that could push him back outside the top 100 overall. Do you think that's a reasonable?
The further down he goes, the more I like him.
Yeah, I could see him falling outside the top 100, I think, at least in these early drafts, given what this season has looked like for Cal Raleigh. We need to hit a quick break. When we come back, we'll start digging into some waiver wire targets that we are intrigued by this weekend. Welcome back to Rates and Barrels. Dodgers president of baseball operations Andrew Friedman joined Starkville this week. Among the topics, they discussed how the trade for Tarek Skubal came together on the Saturday before the trade deadline. Check out Starkville every Saturday wherever you watch or listen to Rates and Barrels.
That dude gets good guests, man.
Yeah.
That's not bad, dude.
Yeah, Andrew Friedman dropped by. It's just sure. Just typical week in Starkville. So lots to cover here in this waiver segment. We've got some rehabbing pitchers. We have another pitching injury with Jacob deGrom leaving with some triceps fatigue Thursday through 53 pitches in 2 innings. Further tests coming there. The Rangers can ill afford to lose deGrom at this point with Nathan Eovaldi already down. They've already got Cody Bradford back in the rotation, so I don't know if there's an immediate add in the potential deGrom replacements, but maybe some help coming from other sources, right? 2 key starters coming back in the near future. Edward Cabrera threw 64 pitches Tuesday over 5 innings at Double-A. His next start could be with the Cubs. If it's not the next one, it should easily be the one after that. And he's looked pretty good on his rehab assignment too. 15 strikeouts against 1 walk in 9 innings thus far.
Yeah, the Stuff Plus, he had some of those outings in AAA. The Stuff Plus range between 105 and 95. His Stuff Plus in general has been down, but I'm excited for him. And there were some reports of some added velo and a new sideways EMI type slider, reverse slider. So I'm interested in Edward Cabrera, and he's one of the better returnees off of the IL. Obviously, Blake Snell is the biggest one. I think I'm putting him in my top 20 right away. Edward Cabrera is probably more of a top 40 guy, but both are big returners.
I did notice some people were dropping Jared Jones coming off of a bad start Sunday against the Mets, down to 71% rostered in CBS leagues. So some opportunities out there, probably in more shallow leagues. There is a schedule-related component to that, I think. The closer you look at it, he's got a matchup against Boston this weekend before he faces the Dodgers next week. So you might have some people saying, I don't want to use those next two starts, and I'm letting him go. Hopefully it's not just a reaction to a bad command day against the Mets. It was 8 earned runs in just 3 innings, added a full run to his season ERA. The whip went from 111 to 120 in that one outing alone, but the overall body of work from Jared Jones continues to be at a level where I still see a top 30, top 35 starting pitcher, even though Sunday's matchup against the Mets went haywire.
Yeah, when you look at him, you've got a guy who's got like a near 20% K minus BB, and he's got above average stuff, above average locations, above average strikeout rate. If you look at comparable pitchers and then sort by ERA, as we have done in this leaderboard, he's got the worst ERA in this group in the big leagues right now because Emmett Sheehan's in the minors with his 5.3 ERA. Then there's Nathan Eovaldi with a 4.2 and Brian Wu, who is actually 2 people, home Brian Wu and road Brian Wu, and Reed Detmers is the only ones above 4. The median outcome in this group is pretty much like a Joe Ryan with a 3.6 ERA, a 26% strikeout rate, and a 5% walk rate. I think Jared Jones can do that. I don't know. Maybe we've overrated his aceness. There's some possibility there. He's not striking out people at a 30% rate. On this list as well, as you can see, is Paul Skeens, or he was at one point, and I don't know if he dropped off with all the filtering I was doing. But Paul Skeens was a comparable pitcher in one way here, and Paul Skeens though has a 30% strikeout rate, and if you look at 30% strikeout rates, there have been 88 qualified seasons. This is from my piece today on Paul Skeens. There have been 88 qualified seasons with a strikeout rate over 30%. Paul Skeens has the 4th worst ERA in that group. The median ERA of a guy who strikes out 30% of the batters he sees is Randy Johnson's 2.65 ERA in 2000, and this is going all the way back to 2000. So, it's really good to strike guys out, and Jones hasn't quite reached those upper levels that I thought was possible for him yet. It's still early in his career. There are still things he can do, and I can see. We saw from the schedule that an upcoming trip against the Dodgers, and what was the other game? Boston. And I guess I could see, if you've got 6 weeks left and you're not going to start him for the next 2 weeks, you say, I'm going to drop him now, and then and then I'll figure out those last 4 weeks, all hands on deck basically. And if he's not useful this week, then I need to move on. I guess I could see it, but that steamer, that oopsie projection of a 3.6 ERA, that fits right in line with the median outcome of his comps basically. So that's what I would expect for him going forward.
Couple other things here. Like you were describing the schedule for the Pirates and how that impacts guys like Jones and Skeens, but Hunter Dobbins still just 13% roster in CBS. We've talked about him as one of the lower rostered pitchers that we're actually interested in down the stretch. The thing that makes it challenging in some leagues is the schedule for Dobbins is actually tough. His next start comes Sunday at Wrigley against the Cubs. A really good lineup, full of guys that are taking quality at bats, so just kind of grinding opposing pitchers down. He goes on the road to Philly after that. We talked about the Phillies' overall offensive woes being a bottom 5 offense by WRC+. It still doesn't feel like a place where you want to throw inexperienced pitchers. You could maybe get away with it in that case. And then he's got some starts later in the month where he's got home against Baltimore, which should be fine, road against the Dodgers. I think the main thing here is that if you pick up Hunter Dobbins, even in a deep league, it's not a set it and forget it situation. It's a play the matchup sort of situation with him.
Yeah, Dobbins is interesting because his cut fastball has become a cutter, basically. And so he's a cutter dominant pitcher with nothing that really has good ride. I think it could work. if he has good command of the bottom of the zone and he just fills up the bottom of the zone with cutters and splitters and sliders and curves, that's the good Dobbins. But I do think that he doesn't really have anything that plays that well at the top of the zone. And like it's more of a cutter that has drop than like a riding like four seam cutter. I'm a little surprised it's called a four seam on Savant. So I think Dobbins is an interesting character, but I think he's schedule dependent.
The other name that we saw surface in the big leagues this week that's available a lot of places is Jackson Kent. Talked to Spencer Nussbaum about him a couple of weeks ago. 6% rostered in CBS. He debuted against the Cubs. Very tough assignment. The model was not impressed. The model spit out a 79 step plus, a 90 location plus, and an 80 pitching plus. If you're a believer, the good news is other people might temper their bids based on that. I was watching that start back. He had a little extra velo bump in the first inning. The adrenaline was pumping pretty good. 94, 95 with the fastball in the first, but was really sitting more 91, 92 for the most part after that. And the command looked like what you would describe as debut command, right? And I think the thing I would want to know about Jackson Kent is how much does the arsenal play up on a day when the fastball command is typical, right? It's not going to be overpowering stuff, but if the changeup is his best secondary and the fastball command wasn't working in that debut against the Cubs, I think you got maybe like the worst combination of things as far as how he could have presented that first time out.
Yeah, the underlying grades, though, for Fangraphs are mediocre-ish for his command, so I don't think he fits into the Parker Messick bucket, where he's going to go better than his model numbers because he's got great command. I don't think that's the kind of guy we're talking about. The one thing I will say is that his changeup grade, which is a 57 stuff plus, is based on 17 changeups. I would wait at least until 30 or 40 changeups to really believe that. So he needs another start before I think his changeup is bad, because the prospect grade from Fangraphs was 60-70 on that changeup. So it is also interesting that it's so low that maybe there's something there that like it's actually a good one, right? I mean, it looks like an outlier changeup, but even if that is the case, once he dropped that debut velo bump in the first inning, he did not have good velo. And I can see from video that he's going to have, I think, over a 45-degree arm angle, which is relevant because, if you look at his movement on the fastball, you would say this is good IVB. But if he has a large, a 47, 50, degree arm angle, then you would not say it was great movement versus his arm angle. It would be expected movement, and that takes away from its quality. Dead zone. We talk about dead zone. Jackson Kent, I think, might have a dead zone fastball. If he has a dead zone fastball, it's a dead zone fastball, good changeup, gyro slider, curveball, decent mix with maybe bad command. I mean, if you look at his pitch plot locations for that start, there's almost nothing in the zone. It's not like far outside the zone. There's some chase, there's some waste four seamers, but there's nothing really in the zone. So I don't think this is a guy who has good crap and throws it in the zone. The major leaguers use different words for those. But
yeah. It's going to be more working around the edges of the zone. I would say the only thing that makes me, there's two things, I guess, that make me say, let's see a little more. A, it's one start, and B, it's the Cubs. So you know how dangerous the lineup is, erring on the side of missing up, away, down, in, and not missing inside the zone where you're going to get punished. It's a 2-start week for Kent if he stays in this rotation, both on the road, Rangers and Marlins. So if you're chasing volume, that's probably your use case, but it's a risky bad. 2-step.
It's risky, but it's not bad. I mean, it's in terms of opponents.
Right. From there, you can kind of go week to week. He'd be home against the Marlins after that, and then on the road against the Dodgers, which no matter how good the next 3 starts are, I don't think I'd go anywhere near that matchup with a guy throwing 91, 92 on the fastball at this point in time. The other pitching question for you is kind of a quick one. Another blown save for Edwin Díaz on Thursday. Tanner Scott's been dropped in some leagues. He's only rostered in 56% of CBS leagues right now. Do you think there's a little reset coming for Edwin Díaz, a little vacation from the ninth inning so he can try and get dialed back in again. And they've got Tanner Scott there, who went through a difficult first year with the Dodgers himself, but looks like the guy they signed to a 4-year deal up through, the midpoint of August now. It seems like Tanner Scott's back on track. So if you're in the position of Dave Roberts, why would you not make an adjustment here?
Yeah, I mean, Diaz's movement patterns, his arm angle, his velo, they're not quite back to where he once was. I would just give him some time to figure it out. And his command has never been good, so you really need the stuff to be good. And I think that it'll just be easier to do that, against the bottom of the order. Just give him some. His manager didn't think that Edwin Díaz needed that, but that could be the dreaded vote of confidence. Let's do a little mini closer wheel, little bullpen report. If you're looking at Yennier Cano, who might be the closer in Baltimore with Andrew Kittredge, so you want to put Cano, Kittredge on there. Let's see, what about like Nate Pearson and is it Steven Cruz, that you're looking at in Kansas City? I think if that's the level of pitcher you're looking at, then Tanner Scott rises above all of those guys.
I think that's entirely fair because in the Kansas City case, 2 guys vying for the role. Cruz doesn't miss a ton of bats, at least he hasn't been the last 30 days. They're not going to win a ton of games, like being one of the worst teams in baseball this year. Like I see a lot of frustration there, similar to what we've seen in Anaheim for most of the year. Cano kind of jumps ahead of the 2 Royals guys for me, and then Scott would be ahead of Cano if I was just trying to speculate and get a couple of saves in these next few weeks. Because if Edwin Díaz works it out, I don't think it takes him long to get the job back if they even take it away in the first place.
Yeah, and even though Cano is a little bit of the, Gregory Soto sinker change, that type of package, he does have the stuff and the strikeout rates associated with closer more than Andrew Kittredge, and also he's signed an extension with the team. So there's a little bit of a team context there where they may rather establish him as their closer going into next year than Andrew Kittredge. Also cost certainty, like they're not going to, hurt themselves in arbitration or anything. Oh, well, we can't forget Ben Joyce got a save. Sammy Natera Jr. is the big lefty. Where do you put Ben Joyce if you're putting him between Scott and Cano? Is it between Scott and Cano, after them, ahead of them? Is he the number 1 pickup this weekend?
I don't think he's number 1. I think they're still going to be a little bit careful with the usage because he's coming off a major injury. I think there could be some matchups that they play where Natera gets some of the opportunities and Joyce gets some. I think it's more of a toss-up with Yennier Cano if both were available. So I would have Ben Joyce behind Tanner Scott if you were looking at those 2 and just behind Cano as well.
I might go with Joyce just because he has the perfect, setup of stuff plus strikeout rate. Team needs him. He's with the team next year. I think they want to establish him as the closer. So might go Joyce, Scott, Cano. But I just wanted to clean up that little bit. Also, Jacob Webb has been good as a fill-in closer. Palencia has had no command in the minors. If it's like Webb versus Cruz or Pearson, I might just keep Webb for another week. Maybe Palencia comes in, they ease him in. Maybe Palencia comes in and blows a save. You never know. The command has been pretty bad in his rehab. So that's to finish up our closer corner.
Yeah, beyond the implications of how many saves he gets, I think Jacob Webb's become an important piece of that Cubs bullpen. So ideally for them, they get Palencia back, and Palencia is great, but then they've also got a key piece of the bridge in Webb, who's getting hit less in the zone than we've seen really at any point in these last few seasons. A few bats to think about here. The young shortstops we've talked a lot about. We don't have to rehash everything with George. More roster than the other 2 at this point. So if you're in a 12-team league, Culpepper and Hinau are probably a little more borderline. Lombard probably already rostered in those formats. The guy that I see moving up the most in roster rates on the hitting side is actually Zach Veen, who's getting a look here down the stretch with the Rockies. And I'm curious what you make of Veen coming off of a big year in the hitter-friendly PCL.
I was out on Zach Veen because what it looked like to me in his first couple of tries at AAA was poor bat speed and middling contact rates and poor ground ball, like bad ground ball rates. So I was like, this is all built on legs, man. I don't think there's much else here. Kudos to Zach Veen. Kudos to the Colorado Rockies organization. It looks like he maybe went on some sort of bat speed training. I'm not just looking at the 76.9 miles an hour he's put up in just a few at-bats so far, but I am looking at the max EV in AAA for Zach Veen. In 445 plate appearances, he put up a 113. That is miles better than the 108 and 106 he put up the first couple times in AAA. And that is a legit bat speed number there. 113. You take notice. You say this guy has like better than 200 ISO in the big leagues. That's what I would say with the 113 max EV for Zach Veen. So if he's got better than 200 ISO, he's maybe he's going to be more of a 25-26% strikeout rate guy in the big leagues because of his swing strike rate. Zach Veen will pairs like some walks with that. He might have a 320, 330 OBP, but he's projected for like a 310, still not bad. All the ISOs are in the 160 level. What if he has a 190 or 200 and he's going to run? So this is actually a much better player than I thought Zach Veen was going to be.
Yeah, and I think he's also talked about some substance abuse treatment he's gone through that's also helped him kind of turn things around with his life as a whole, but also with his career this year too. So I think there's a lot that's changed for Veen over the last year or so. And I think the way they set this up, he's going to get a really nice window of playing time for the Rockies down the stretch. A lot of ways he could provide some value.
Does this turf, like what's happening with Beck? Is that the end of Beck, or like what is the deal here? So Veen came up, and in his first game he sat because it was against a lefty, and he's a lefty. So that outfield when he sat was McCarthy, Carrig, and Beck. And then in the next game against the righty, Beck sat. So looks like Beck is small side platoon. It's impossible to be small tea leaves, but that's what the lineup tells us right now.
Yeah, I think because they want to play a lot of Mickey Moniak too, as they should. It's a little bit crowded in the outfield. The only thing that kind of shakes things up in a way that's really interesting too is Carrig plays a little bit of shortstop. He started at short a couple of times. So, Ezequiel Tovar might be the one that feels some pressure. Yeah. Like this could be the beginning of the end of the Tovar experience.
Yeah, and like not for nothing, second base has not been a great place for them. With Connor Norby, the current second baseman, and before that, Willie Castro, who's I think more of a utility guy. So that means that there is some room on the middle infield, even for Tovar to maybe move to second, or Carrig to play second instead of short if they're doing an audition right now. So you move Carrig back to the infield, you get room for Beck, Veen, and McCarthy out there next year.
There you go. Anybody else catching your eye on the hitting side? I feel like it's a little sparse, at least as of Friday. I mean, is Victor Barracoto's back for the Giants. I think they're going to give him some run in their outfield right now. Oslavis Basabe has been playing a lot at second base.
I don't like his plate approach, man. He's
just don't see it either. Yeah. Brett Bateman getting some run for the Jays.
Barracoto has an aggressive plate approach, but he pairs it with more bat speed. And I've thought, I hope I'm not falling into the trap. It is a right-hander with really good bat speed and not a great plate approach. Who was the right-hander DH type with bat speed and bad plate approach that they just ran through from the Mexican League that it never worked out?
Encarnacion?
In San Francisco, Gerard Encarnacion. Like, am I just doing this again? Because Barracoto lost the ball in the lights and just looked awful defensively. And I'm worried that if he's like not able to play on the field, then they're going to figure that out pretty quickly, and he's not going to be part of the future because their DH first base situation is filled up.
I think we're at the point in the year, though, where you just want to take the 6 weeks and see what you have and inform yourself for 2027 if you're the Giants. So they might be willing to look past those defensive flaws for these next few weeks and make a judgment based on that.
a little addition, and this is probably relevant for people looking for, especially in deeper leagues, looking for opportunity, looking for things. I had been saying that, we talked about the Giants. I think you could put Willie Adames on the IL for the rest of the year. You know, the back looks bad. I think that could happen at any moment, and that could be an easy way for you to try Marcelo Meyer at shortstop. And see if he's your shortstop next year. So that situation with Meyer playing shortstop, that would be something I care about. Even if San Francisco is a place that hurts offense, at least it would be everyday tries for Meyer at a position of need. He is a guy that hits the ball hard and has some speed. So I think this is a deeper league play, but Marcelo Meyer is not someone you should just forget about right now.
Yeah, might be the time to pick him up. He homered in his first rehab game on Thursday at AAA Sacramento. Maybe by the end of the weekend, he's back up and getting his first look with the Giants. We're going to hit a quick break. When we come back, our senior hot dog correspondent, Niv Shaw, joins us. We have a Chicago dog breakdown, and we're going to dig into upcoming trade deadlines. What do you do with some of the top-end players that are high-salaried players that you may want to acquire for the stretch run? Welcome back to Rates and Barrels. It is now time to bring back one of our favorite guests, senior hot dog correspondent and founder of Ottoneu, Niv Shaw. Niv, how you doing on this Friday?
I'm doing great. How are you guys doing?
I'm very happy it's Friday. Again, I am in desperate need of these remaining summer and early fall weekends. I absolutely need them because I know what's on the distant horizon. It's getting increasingly close, so I'm trying to soak up as much pool time and outdoor time as I possibly can before I have to retreat into my basement for 3 to 6 months. Let's get to a few topics, though, today. Like, the big thing we want to talk about is upcoming trade deadlines in fantasy baseball leagues, because there's a lot of different deadlines out there on the Ottoneu platform. August 31st is the deadline, so there's still over 2 weeks to still wheel and deal a little bit. And there's two different angles to think about this. Like, mostly you're dealing in keeper and dynasty leagues, in like typical fantasy leagues anyway. And we want to start by looking at some of the highest priced players on the platform, because sometimes you have this late season opportunity to add a top end player, and maybe you just hold on to them because you don't have to deal with fighting inflation in the draft the following season. But as you can see, you look at this year's top price players, average prices, Shohei Ohtani closing in on $80, just over 78 for an average right now. Aaron Judge at 69, Soto 67. You go down the list, it's filled with guys that have been hurt. And I think the chaos we've seen this year with top-end players missing time has left us in this position where these elite players are almost exclusively rentals for the rest of 2026 and not necessarily players that you're going to quietly just keep on your roster for 2027 at these prices +2 or more in some cases.
Yeah, I think it's especially the very top, like Aaron Judge has really screwed everything up for everyone, right? So he's a $70 player that is absolutely worth $70 and maybe even a little bit more because he's just so good. And him being hurt means that buying teams, like a team that is in third that's trying to make a push, isn't going to acquire him. Like, he's not a person who's available in a league, right? Like, you can't get him from the 11th place team and hope that he's going to help you. And so I think the options become a lot more risky, right? Like, when you look at the rest of the list, like Tatis, like Fernandez Jr. is like on a little bit of a heater right now. He's been hitting a little bit better, but how much are you willing to take on a guy who spent 3 months not hitting home runs earlier this year? Like, Julio Rodriguez is another dude. That guy always ends up a very expensive player that doesn't quite fulfill his salary, right? And if you're making that push, again, like, maybe you have internal options that are better, or at least like don't require you to give up 2 prospects or some future value, right? And that's the trade-off here. And I think there's a trade-off with like basically everyone on this list. And then the ones that aren't a trade-off that you're like, oh yeah, I'd take a $50 Yordan Alvarez. Well, whoever has $50 Yordan Alvarez is holding, right?
He is not trading him.
He's
You're
not
right.
trading him.
There's that line of like, well, if he's acquirable, then you have to probably think of him as a rental because the person trading him to you thinks of him as a rental.
Right.
And if he's not a rental, then he's not acquirable because the person thinks, oh yeah, this person's such a good player. He's a $50 player. At $50, that's worth so much that I'm not going to give him to you, like, for a couple pieces, like
even if I'm in 12th place, you're going to have to pay up for him.
I'd rather have Yordan Alvarez for next year, why not have him? I'd rather still build around him. I think the intriguing guys, I think Julio Rodriguez is actually intriguing because he's had so many white hot stretches where maybe you get him and he's white hot for the next 6 weeks and he pushes himself close to like, oh, maybe I do want to keep him at $44 next year. I think Skeens could do the same. I know that $40 is pretty expensive for a pitcher, but if you have one guy like that, it's going to be somebody who had the best first 2 years in the history of baseball, at least since the mound was lowered. The first 2-year debut for Skeens was the best, better than Dwight Gooden, better than, Blake Snell's great beginning, better than Vida Blue. So Skeens could play his way back into that. So I think Skeens is an intriguing one where he's borderline capable if he plays really well the rest of the way. Maybe Acuna could really play well for 6 weeks, in terms of showing some power and speed. Do you think like Lindor or Gunnar Henderson, that's on the lower end with their $36 players. I kind of think they could play their way towards keeping at that level.
Beyond just trying to get keepers, which I think is a totally valid way of thinking about this, is like, I think that's a good approach. But if you're in third place and you're gunning for first and you're like, I have been playing, I don't know, like say someone like Trey Turner at shortstop all year, and that's been a little disappointing, and I'm spending money there and I want an upgrade there. You could say like, oh, maybe I can pair Lindor and Turner, and rest of the year I can get like a plus shortstop out of that position. And that could just help me bridge that gap. And like what you're trying to do is figure out a way to get points or stats that can help you catch first. And if you want to do that, I think Lindor is like a pretty interesting. Now, like Lindor is one of those guys for me. Personally, I think Lindor is like in need of a reset in Ottoneu generally. I think he's entered like a second phase of his career. He's still a very good player, but I'm not sure he is $35 plus player.
Jose Ramirez is there too, I think. I have him in a league where I'm in first or second, and I have him at like $60 or something. And I'm just like, he's a rental. And if I was a worse team, I'd be trading him.
Right, exactly. Like those are guys that, but then, what you have to hope for, and I think a guy like Lindor probably doesn't command a lot of return. So if you have a team that's like 6th or 7th and they have Lindor and they're like, yeah, it's not happening this year, you may be able to get him and again, hope for a kind of stretch like you were talking about with J-Rod, like just like a little heater.
I think the other two position players that I'm wondering about, one came up before in Gunnar Henderson, and the other is Corbin Carroll. And I wonder, with Corbin Carroll, we know he had the hamate surgery back in the spring, came back from that well, looked kind of like really good immediately, and has quietly been fine without being elite of the elite, I think is the fair way to describe it. But if you just pull back and say, we're talking about a 25-year-old, soon to be 26-year-old, that is still likely in that peak that went 30-30 a year ago and went 25 homers and 54 steals in his first full big league season in 2023. I think you could tell yourself a story that he is still maybe on his way up in terms of what people are going to be willing to pay and what he's able to produce. So I could see Carroll maybe being the one guy that if I'm not winning right now, and I can get him on my roster now, I don't want to necessarily have to fight everybody in the draft room for him. It takes really unique circumstances for that to happen. But I think Henderson's more of a question mark. I don't really know what to make of his season. It's 2 years. He was hurt last year, kind of playing through injuries, but it's 2 years now where the barrel rate's no longer a double-digit barrel rate. This year, the steals have tailed off. He's 9 for 13 as a base stealer, and he's running a 297 OBP. Like, there's going to be some bounce back, but did we already see the peak of Henderson, who, like Carroll, is going to be in that window career-wise where this should still be peak? He's not going to turn 26 until next June.
Yeah, Gunnar Henderson makes me really nervous. I think Corbin Carroll is actually a great shout. Both directions, both as, I want to rebuild around Corbin Carroll and I don't want to deal with him in the draft or deal with trying to get him in the draft, I mean. Or conversely, in one of your deeper leagues, like again, Ohtani was 5 outfield, you have to replace your worst outfielder with Corbin Carroll, not your best. He doesn't have to be the top of your lineup right away. And so he's a great acquisition candidate too for teams making a push, I think.
He might be a rental to the person you're buying from, and right. you think he could play his way into keeper status.
He could play his way into really keeper. Ideal. So that's like really the Eno, like what you were getting at. Like that's like a perfect. That guy could be a $40 guy, and he's going to help me right now. Like he's definitely going to be better than whatever 5th outfielder I've been running out there. So.
I think Gunnar is going to be in the Cal Raleigh bucket where he's going to be cut by a lot of people at that price, and he's going to be back in the draft pool, and I'm going to be interested. And I bet you're going to be interested. It'll be one of those really annoying things where the draft pushes it back up to $30 again, because there'll be 3 other guys who are
willing to do it.
Yeah. And inflation always does that. But I just still like all the component stats. I mean, a 10% swinging strike rate, that's really good to pair with a 74, 75 mile an hour bat speed. I mean, I just think that everything is there. He's still running. He's not running a ton, but he's still running. So like
the barrel rate makes me really nervous. Like that's like such a steep fall off.
It's true.
Like I don't know. I know that stat is like not necessarily the most reliable, whatever. It can be variant from year to year or, week to week. But it just seems like, if that was bad, if that was really good luck for the first year, and maybe this is just what he is, that's what it feels like. Because, these guys who come up really quick, it's exciting they come up really quick, but they also we don't have 3 or 4 or 5 years of minor league, like, we feel really confident that this is what.
And there's a lot of aging curves that suggest that, the more common experience for a young player these days is to come in and have their best seasons really early and just sort of go down from there, as opposed to the old idea of an aging curve where you get better, towards your peak. So the newer aging curve suggests that you kind of plateau and then just go down. But the last thing I would just say about Gunnar is that, like, you could replace all of this year's stats with, if you just took last year's batting average of balls in play and put it on top of this year's stats, you would get really close to last year's numbers. So if you treat last year as what you're paying for, 275, 350 OBP, 17 homers, maybe you're not getting 30 steals, but if you pay for a guy who's going to hit 275 with like sort of 18-18 kind of stats, maybe pushing 20-20, I think that you could have a surprise on the other side where the barrel rate returns and he has a good year.
And it's like above that even.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
I kind of wonder too if in like the redraft context, if Gunnar gets a little bit of the Jackson Merrill treatment, the discount probably won't be as steep because there's a slightly longer track record of big league success there. But if a guy that we saw going in the first round and Henderson is going in the 4th round of redraft leagues next year, I'm probably in at that discount. And again, someone I'm watching very closely to see where he goes this winter, because even though there are a few concerning trends, there's still a good enough foundational skill set there where he could be fine at that discounted price without a massive rebound back to first round status. We got a hot dog review for today, Niv. And this was one that I feel like we had hoped would come back around, because Taste of the Majors, I would say, rarely disappoints. They're usually doing good work there. We're usually pretty strong in our praise of the dogs they put together. The Cubs were in town recently. That means the Chicago dog made its return. I wanted to say triumphant return, but this isn't good, man. I'm going to read the description and you can tell me, like, okay, the Windy City shows off their Franks in a tape-covered poppy seed. So poppy seed buns were out.
The tape cover always
sets the tone.
It really,
tape cover.
you
going in when you order an item and part of the description is covered by tape, that it's not going well. So it's loaded with onions, tomatoes, pickles, and of course, jalapenos. hang on to your hat. Now, yes, it is windy in Chicago and your hat can blow right off your head. So that imagery is accurate to Chicago. But as you'll see in the image of the dog, this does not look like a Chicago dog. I don't know what's going wrong here. What is being lost in translation?
Obviously, the jalapeno is the number one problem.
I mean, the jalapenos, like, why are you here? Like, sport peppers are the peppers that you see that have the heat on a Chicago dog. Last night,
and I was like, is it hard to get? I was like, you've worked in a restaurant. My friend works in a restaurant. I was like, is it hard to get is it hard to source sport peppers? And he was like, no, like, it's so easy. And I'm like, is it some sort of exotic thing that like we cannot? It's like, no, it's Chicago. It's like not, it's like, this isn't like a far flung place where you're importing peppers from. It's a sport pepper. They're around. And that was the disappointing one here. I think the other thing, and I think we called this out last year, is that pickle is too big. A pickle is just too big. Like, it is so big. It covers up the entire bun.
Oh my God. I was looking at the picture and I was like, where's the pickle?
It was the bun.
You thought it was the bun?
Yeah, that's a pickle. That whole bottom thing, that's a pickle. It's so big.
It does give you an idea of like some sort of keto-friendly hot dog where you like use the pickle as a bun.
Oh man. Oh God.
Oh my God, I thought that was the bun.
Yeah, it's just too big. It's unwieldy. You can't really see it from the picture, and maybe I need to zoom in more or rearrange some stuff. But there is a layer of onions, diced onions underneath. And if you remember my Harry Potter review, the hot dogs at the Harry Potter day,
you're a big fan of the diced raw onions,
man. So just again, this is fundamentally a hot dog with onions and mustard, and then 3 things that are dumb. A bad tomato, a really big pickle, and jalapenos for some reason. But the jalapenos are good. Like, jalapenos on a hot dog, it's not like it's not a Chicago dog, but it's good. It's not like bad. And I gotta say, if you called it, I guess you couldn't really call it anything because the tomatoes are on there, and the tomatoes to me are a really Chicago dog specific thing. Mm-hmm. But so you have to call it Chicago dog with this tomato on it. But if you give me a hot dog,
what's like the traditional? Remind me of the traditional Chicago dog. It's the poppy seed bun. It's a tomato pickle. Like, these are the elements that are
there's
usually
gotta be some relish, like the special relish that's like that bright green relish.
Is there relish in there? I see something.
There is relish underneath, but the pickle is like, the pickle kind of blocks out the sun, right? So,
is it normal Chicago dogs are little sliced like bread and butter pickles, right?
Oh, no, they're just smaller spears. They're like a small spear that like that fits with it. That's smaller than the hot dog, I think.
Right, like half of that.
I might be correct about that in Discord later, but like I think the jalapeno relish mustard onion thing is a hot dog, and I would eat that. Like, that's like coherent. When you put these sort of like old tomatoes on it, it's not terrible. And when you put the giant pickle on it, now it's becoming like a little unwieldy.
Mm-hmm.
And if you just called it something
you lost
else,
the hot dog too, right? Like, when you ate this, were you like, "Where's the hot dog?"
Yeah. It's so. I mean, but that's sort of true about a Chicago dog, right? Like, they're kind of busy. If they called it something else, you would look at this and be like, "This is a little unwieldy. That pickle is huge, but it's tasty looking, and I'd eat it."
But you raise people's hackles when you call this a Chicago dog. Right. There's too many people who are like,
you're inviting the comparison, right?
Yeah.
You're inviting the cultural conversation about it. So I think, it's a miss, but it's a miss because a Chicago dog is so definable, and it's not really a miss on its own merits. Like, it was fine. Like, I wouldn't dissuade you from eating one, but just know what you're getting into.
Well, we'll have better days on the hot dog front, Niv Shah, and Niv is going to be attending the First Pitch conference in Arizona in November. Always fun. Niv,
I'm excited
came with me the first time I ever went.
Yeah, I think that was one of our first hangouts. It was like 2010 or 2011. It was a long time ago.
Yeah, and so putting a capstone on that's pretty fun. Awesome. He was showing me his brand new game,
which
that's right. Ended up being Auto New, and he wanted to go to a conference and show some people Auto New. So he's back. And so we invite you to come and hang out with us. There's still early bird pricing, and it's a really fun event, but we have to go. And so thank you so much, Niv, for your insights on the Ottoneu platform and your disgusting hot dog. And we'll see you again soon.
We need to go. My AirPods have died, so the show is effectively over. You can join our Discord with the link in the show description. Thanks again to Niv Shah for joining us today. Check out Starkville on Saturday. Eno and I are back with you on Monday.